Thank you for joining us at Community on Demand. Today, we will hear from David R. Anderson, PhD. Dr. Anderson is a veteran church planner, pastor, author of several books, and he is the founder and chairman of the Board of Trustees of Grace School of Theology here in the Woodlands. He is also a member here at Community. This message was recorded during a live Sunday morning service at Community. Let's join Dave as he begins his message.
Well, I've never been afraid of my wife before until somewhat recently. You see, she is a survivalist. If you don't know what that means you get a year's worth of food and you do all kinds of things in case of an emergency falling upon our nation. I remember when she started collecting food, she came in and said that she was going to be a distributor of this freeze-dried stuff. And I said, why that? She said, well, then I get it wholesale. So these big things, 5-gallon drums started coming to the house. 10 of them, 20 of them, 30 of them. Where are we going to put this, Biddy? Under our bed. I sleep on 35 5-gallon drums of food. So we're lying there one night. It's dark, about to go to sleep. I said, you know, Betty, if we ever really need this, the neighbors are going to come and get it. There's complete silence. Thought maybe she was asleep. Then she says, I'll get a gun. Please don't get a gun. Please don't get a gun. Please. Then I find out the pastor's wife has a gun. We're over at their house, and she says, you want to see my gun, Betty? Oh. Out goes Kayla's purse. Out comes the gun, and it's kind of flopping around like guns do. Pointing at me. I didn't want to say anything, embarrass her. We were in her home. But then she handed it to Betty. And I said, Betty, can you see where the end of that gun is pointing? So I encouraged her not to get a gun. A month later, she comes in and says, guess what you got me for Christmas? A Glock. She gets a 9mm Glock. And I said, oh. And it has a red dot thing, a pointer. So my son-in-law goes down with her to Gander Mountain while it still existed to learn how to shoot it. These virtual targets, she 10 in a row, boom, boom, boom. Then she went to real targets. Bullseye, 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 bullseye. And then I felt this fear creeping over me. And I come in late at night sometimes. I see the red dot on my forehead. Betty, please. But she's an amazing shot. Now, I'm blind in this eye. So I'm all over the map on this target. And so we went to get some instruction to make me a better shot. I couldn't do any better. And then he said, well, let me see you shoot. So they have these targets, and this is kind of where you go. So she just tore this up. And then all that was left was a white rectangle right here. So we moved it back 45 feet. That's as far as it goes. Boom, boom, boom. The instructor looked at me and said, don't make this woman mad. She is a survivalist. Well, the passage we're on today is going to talk about surviving in the midst of catastrophe. And that's what many people are predicting for our country. By way of intro to this whole passage in James, where we'll be, I want us to look at the background that Jesus lays for it in Luke chapter 12. He says, then one from the crowd said to him, Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. But he said to him, Man, who made me a judge or an arbiter over you? And he said, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. He then spoke a parable to them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will store all my crops and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods and laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. A French painter named Bernot put this on canvas. And he showed a man sitting behind a desk. Behind him on some cupboards were little bags of money with strings tying each one. The window was open to look outside, and you could see a great crop materializing. And he's sitting there, he's pondering, he's thinking, what shall I do now? And that's where that part of the painting stops, right there. Later on, he flipped it over, and he added some things. This time, there was a layer of dust on his desk, and there was an angel, the angel of death, standing in front of his desk. The angel's mouth was open as though to say, You fool. You see, he had done well. There's nothing wrong with doing well. You don't take a job to fail or get fired. You want to succeed. And we know from the ant of Proverbs 6 that we're to work in the summer to have, when things aren't harvesting, laid up for the winter. Nothing wrong with a 401k or pension funds or any of that stuff. The problem was he wasn't taking God into account, and he wasn't reckoning on the possibility of death. Now, if I were to take the roles of this church and go back a year, I'll bet you there are people who were here a year ago who are not here today because they've died. Some of them probably knew it was coming. Many of them don't see it coming. My first 5 funerals as a pastor, no one saw it coming. The first was a 3-year-old child who was shot to death by a guy who'd gone crazy. The next was an 18-year-old boy who had been killed in a car wreck. The next one was another boy, 3 boys out on Longmire Road. 2 here, 1 here, boom, all 3 were killed. And so on. None of those people were expecting to die. We, sitting here today, aren't expecting to die today. But you never know, do you? You just never know. As a pastor here in the Woodlands, Texas, every year I buried a teenager. One after another after another. Because they get that license, they get out on these streets, they get frustrated with the red lights, and they run them. And they get plowed, and they get killed. One was in my own neighborhood. He got out here on Research Forest, got up to 100 miles an hour between Holly Hill, which is Shenandoah, and where the gas station is, right in there. That's not a long strip. He got up to 100 miles an hour. Car comes out, killed. 22 years old. We just need to take a perspective that God has on this life. And James is going to give that to us. And when all this is said and done, don't take this as a message against making money or being blessed financially. It's your attitude toward it all that makes the difference. So we're in the book of James. We're seeing that we need 3 qualities in order to have victory over our trials and not be victims of our trials. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. We entered the section on being slow to wrath a couple of weeks ago. And we saw, first of all, the cure to wrath is humility, because much of our wrath comes out of pride. So we saw the stair steps to humility, from the attic of pride to the basement of humility. That's humility before God. And if you have your notes from your bulletin, you can see the outline of James right in front of you. So the cause for conflict is pride. Then the cure for conflict is going to be humility. Humility before God in verses 6 through 10. And then last week we saw humility in the church, humility before men. And that much of it deals with what we do with our tongue. A sign of pride is putting other people down. A sign of humility is building other people up. Why should we care? Because it says God gives grace to the humble, but he resists the proud. And that word resist means to put on battle armor. You want to go fight God? Just follow the path of pride. You want more grace to overcome the lust and the sin nature that still reigns from time to time in your life? Then find humility. He resists the proud. He gives grace to the humble. Now this is our third section on humility. We saw humility before God, 6 through 10. Humility before men, 11 and 12. Now we're into humility before the world. And we're in verses 14 all the way down through chapter 5, verse 6. And so he says, as we go into verse 13, come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there, buy and sell and make profit. What we're looking at here is self-sufficiency. And what I'm trying to prove here is that if pride is a declaration of independence from God for the privilege and power to live this life, then to measure my self-sufficiency is to measure my pride. We have thermometers for temperature, speedometers for speed, barometers for pressure, and we have a pedometer to measure our pride. And that's what he's going to give us this morning, a pedometer. And the measure of my self-sufficiency is the measure of my pride. You say, well, wait a minute. Everyone should want to be self-sufficient. Well, not me. My life goal has always been to be a burden to my children. Do I see that hand? And I'm almost there. I've about got it. But rugged individualism, isn't that the motto for America? You know, I don't need anybody. I've got my 401k. I can retire. Or maybe I am retired. But I did it. I made all this money. I'm gifted. I'm talented. Sounds like William Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. That's the battle cry of a proud person. And yet it's the goal of many people. James says, here are the rules for self-sufficiency. First of all, choose your own time and schedule. And that's what this guy is doing in verse 13, or these people. Today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, make a profit. Setting their schedule, selecting the location, limiting his stay as it pleased him. Arrange my activities for benefit and pleasure, predict my profit, and boast in it. Nowhere in there do you see God. He is totally left out. And it's pretty clear what the priorities of the material man are. It's business first, then pleasure, then family if he has one, and God if he believes in him, and then ministry. Last on the totem pole is his using his spiritual gift to serve. Right above that is God. But way up on the totem pole is his business. Had a couple in my former church, gifted and talented. They were both captains for Southwest Airlines. And they had 2 children. So they had to plan their flying schedules, so one parent was always home. But if that's true, guess what? Passing each other in the night. And I'll never forget the day one of the captains called me and said, we have to sit down with our two kids and explain why we're getting a divorce. So you want me to explain why you are getting a divorce to your children? They came in, they sat in front of me. The father began trying to explain it. And his little boy, about 10 years old, looked at him and said, Daddy, you don't have to leave Mommy. You want to leave Mommy. And my heart just went kaboom. You know, they were gifted. They were talented. They make tons of money. You know, a person in their position that they had right now makes over $400,000 a year. That's two of them making that. And they're still flying. That's probably what they're making. But their priorities are different. Their priorities are that of the material man. Business first. That comes pleasure. Turned out I won't go into that. But family and God ministry were down the line. Now, what does God say about priorities? For the spiritual man, God's first. Then his family. Then his ministry. Then his business. And then pleasure. Nothing wrong with pleasure. God wants us to be pleased and have pleasure in many things. Nothing wrong with that. It's the priorities. You say, well, I don't like those priorities. It doesn't make any sense because my family and my business run together. The reason I'm in business is to provide for my family. Exactly. But how much do you need to provide? I had a call from Dallas, Texas. A young man says, I'm a salesman of furniture. My company wants to move me to Houston. But I told them I won't go unless I can find a church like the one I'm in up here in Dallas. So he came down and visited our church. He decided it was okay. So he was going to settle up there in Conroe somewhere. And there was a new subdivision opening up in the mid-'70s called Shenandoah. And he said, I think I'll go down there and help start a church. And that's exactly what he did. And he helped me start Faith Bible Church down the road here. He put his family and God and his ministry in front of his business. I've met a few like that. It takes tremendous faith to do that. More faith than most of us have. Vance Packard once wrote, pride is the prime mover behind status seeking. The title of his book is The Status Seekers. In one chapter entitled Snob Appeal Equals Today's Home Sweet Home, Packard illustrates his thesis with an advertisement from a local newspaper. Quote, an unbelievably lavish, handcrafted manorial estate for a very limited number of affluent families of good taste. $2 million. Wow. Did you hear about the salesman who closed hundreds of sales with this line? Let me show you something several of your neighbors told me you couldn't afford. The status seekers. Using material things to display our pride. Again, nothing wrong with a nice house. Don't misunderstand me. Nothing wrong with a nice car. Unless we're counting on that to impress other people, then that can be a problem. Now, you can make certain decisions to help limit your pride. Try to get control on it. I try to do it with my cars. My mother-in-law bought an old Buick from a friend of hers who was dying. She was a blind woman, didn't drive much. True story. She bought it for her son to drive when he came to visit her. So it only had 3,000 miles on it, and it was, I think, it was a 97 Buick Sabre. And took it in to get the sticker, and the guy said, you know, Mr. Anderson, I hate to tell you this, but someone has rolled your odometer. I said, why is that? Well, it only has 4,000 miles on it. It's 7 years old. I said, oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. No, a blind lady had it. So we got that car, and I drove it. We started grade school of theology. I was the president. And some of my employees started coming to me and nudging me and saying, you know, that car you have is not very presidential. Not presidential at all. I said, well, I like it. Ride's great. So one day I'm going out to Midland, Texas. I'm going to preach out there. And I'm in my Buick. Great ride, by the way. And so I'm going along, the speed limit's 70, and in my self-righteousness, I set my speedometer for 5 miles over 70, 75. And felt pretty proud as cars whoosh by me. Whoosh going 90, 85. Well, we get to San Antonio and get through San Antonio, and they up it to 75. I said, oh my gosh, I can go 75. So I set the speedometer on 80. So I'm going along. I get out to Junction, and I set it to 85. 85. Man, I don't know if this will go 85. But I upped it. I didn't put the speedometer at 90, but I put it at 85. And no, I think it was at 80, so I put it at 85. Going along, cars are still passing me. In my self-righteousness, I'm feeling very humble and very actually proud of my humility. All of a sudden, the car goes, I'd frozen the engine. There I am halfway to Midland. I have to have the car towed all the way back to Houston. You can even be proud of your humility. Isn't that subtle? You always have to keep your eye out for it. You don't want to be proud of your humility. One guy came in to this pastor and said, I'm quitting. Why are you quitting? All you talk about is money. And I give to the church. I'm tired of hearing about money. Well, the pastor just happened to know the guy didn't give much. He said, well, let me show you something. So he opened his Bible, found the word God, said, you see that word, G-O-D? Guy said, yeah, I see it. Pastor pulled out a coin and put it over the word God. He said, now do you see it? No, I don't see it anymore. He got the point. Money can get between us and God. Jesus says, you can't serve both. You can't love money and love God at the same time. You love the one and hate the other, or you'll hate the other and love one or love the other. You just can't do both at the same time. So the wrong attitude is to use material things to bring glory to yourself. Arrogance is the word he talks about here. He says the things you've accomplished in this life, the pride of life of 1 John 2:16. And that's what James is saying here. He says in verse 16, but now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore to him who knows to do good and does it not, to him it is sin. I had a friend once that I used to play handball with once a week. We'd go to the YMCA down in Dallas. And one day we were going to go, and he said he couldn't. His membership had lapsed. Well, he was a millionaire. His father was the richest man in Chattanooga, had given his son lots of money. I said, well, why don't you just renew it? He said, insufficient funds. Well, I knew what he was saying. What he did with his money, every week he and his wife lived on X amount, not every week, every month, and took the rest and he gave it away. And he did that every month. He said, I don't like money to pile up because I started relying on it instead of the Lord. And that's really what he's saying here. That if we're going to boast, 2 Corinthians 12, Paul says, I'll boast in my weaknesses, not in my strength. So finally, he turns into a prophet. He's going to condemn self-sufficiency in verses 5 chapter 5, verses 1 through 6. And that's where he says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten." Now, I was teaching this down in Beaumont. It was an all-black church, big church, about 2,500 people. And I learned down there how to hoop. You ever heard of hooping? That's what they did in the plantations back when they had slavery. They couldn't read, but they would take spiritual songs and they'd throw them across the plantation. Hooping is what they called it. And so watch these preachers, and they'd preach along just normal, and then the last 5 minutes, they'd start hooping. So I was in this passage and talking along. Some of them were kind of going to sleep. Ooh. So I said, James, you probably don't know this, was the first hooper. And here's what he said. "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupted," and so on. I mean, they fell out. They were on the floor. This old, stupid white preacher was up there hooping. That's kind of what James is doing here. Your gold and silver are corroded. Now, it's kind of interesting. In the last few months, gold and silver have gone, "Erp." And if you were in gold or silver stocks, they went, "Erp." Everyone's out buying gold and silver. They're counting on that to save them in case of a catastrophe. Could we have a catastrophe? Do you know that in 2005, the Bankers Act changed things to where if you own some stock, it's no longer your personal property? And now brokerage houses are pooling derivatives along with your stock, options, bonds into one big pool, and they can borrow from your account to do their own side investing out here on the side. And that's how some of the fraudulent crypto things have gone. FTX, whatever it was. One was a $4 billion crypto fraud scam. But they can legally take your securities, your 401k, that you probably have invested in mutual funds or ETFs or whatever, and they can go invest that in something they want to invest. But if that goes under, then you lose. Now, of course, if you're in a bank, you're insured up to $250,000 for each account or each bank, as the case may be. But if you have stored up more than that, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee at all. So what he's trying to say here with this whole deal, put God in the equation. I want to read to you what it says over in Deuteronomy 8. The passage that I think every businessman or woman would do well to memorize. He said, "When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which he has given you. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments, his judgments, and his statutes, which I command you today, lest when you have eaten and are full and have built beautiful houses and dwell in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply, when your silver and gold are multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, when your heart is lifted up and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness, in which were fiery serpents and scorpions and thirsty land, where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who led you in the wilderness with manna which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you and that he might test you to do you good in the end. Then you say in your heart, my power, the might of my hand, have gained me all this wealth. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. Then it shall be, if you by any means forget the Lord your God, and follow after other gods, and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that you shall surely perish. As the nations which the Lord destroys before you, so you shall perish, because you would not be obedient to the voice of the Lord your God. Wow, what a passage. Is it saying it's wrong to have nice houses, nice cars, nice chariots, whatever? No, it says God gave them to you. He gave you the power to have those things. He doesn't condemn enjoying those things. But he wants you to worship him as the one who enabled you, as the one who gave them to you. And if you forget him, what's he going to do? He'll take it all away. You know, it's interesting back in James, if you look at what it says about the gold and silver, he says that your gold and silver are corroded. You know, gold doesn't corrode. And this is the same word, eos, used in chapter 3 of the word poison. The tongue is a world of evil, a death-dealing poison. What kind of poison could render gold useless? What about radioactive fallout? We're closer to a nuclear war than we've ever been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Any number of things could set it off. And from what I read, within 1 hour, they can kill 4 billion people. Wow. And some think, I am not necessarily one of them, that as Jesus went up in the clouds, so he'll come back. Those clouds could be nuclear clouds. There's going to be some explanation for the rapture and where did all the people go. So out of all this, what I'm saying is really pretty simple. Don't hoard for tomorrow what you can afford today. Since we don't know what the future holds, why hold on to the future? Don't hoard today if you can. Don't hoard for tomorrow what you can afford to give today. Now, let's not go crazy with this stuff. My wife and I have savings. My children are so happy about that. I don't think it's wrong to have savings. But we do acknowledge that God gave it to us. And all along the way, we have a giving program. So that any day there's giving going on. Regular giving into multiple places. So I think what he's saying is, in the rules of giving, whatever you make, whether it's a commission or a salary or whatever it is, take the first fruits right off the top and give it. You say, well, I hardly have enough to meet my bills. Why should I do that? Because that's how to live by faith. Otherwise, you're living by sight. You're waiting till the end of the month to see if you have money left over to give. That's living by sight. God wants faith. So when you take something right off the top, and he doesn't tell you how much, take what you and your wife, if you're married, can be happy giving. It brings you joy. God loves a cheerful giver. There's no compulsion. Take that and give it to wherever you want to give it. But by doing that, you are worshiping the God who gave you the money. Then you may find that you have extra building up that you want to give also. But take something off the top and give it to the Lord. You can do that today. Don't hoard for tomorrow what you can afford to give today. Don't be like the flip side of Renault's painting, where the angel of death is standing before you and saying, "You fool."
On behalf of Pastor Dan and the folks at Community, thank you for joining us today at Community on Demand. Feel free to share this link with others, and please know you are always welcome to be our guest during a live service any Sunday morning at our campus in The Woodlands, Texas. For more information, just click on the link www.cbcwoodlands.org. I hope you will again join us at Community on Demand.